Hello. So yes, we are back. The Pillars of Life podcast has returned, and I can only apologise for the hiatus. Sometimes life does get a little bit busy, but I hope you enjoyed the intro if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and if you're on YouTube here watching, hello. I am using a new recording system. Actually, it's called Riverside, and apparently it is amazing for video and clips, so hopefully the video quality is better than what you've been used to on this YouTube channel. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then I would really appreciate it if you could just let me know what the quality of the sound is like, because I'm using a different sort of setup here because this is season 2 of the Pillars of Life podcast, because I've not recorded an episode since March, I believe, and the simple reason is because I just stopped. Life's sometimes, and it can be really busy, and unfortunately we have a bit of bandwidth and you can't do everything in life. So the podcast had to go on a bit of a back burner as I've been trying to build other things and focus on my other pillars of life, including my fitness, relationships, hanging out with friends, social experiences, trying to play a bit of golf, even though not very successful. Probably should stick to trying to build a podcast because it seems easier than golf sometimes. But no, it's been good. Life's been good, and like I say, unfortunately, the podcast had to take a bit of a backseat, and I think that's a good lesson for us to take away, that sometimes we can't do everything. And I bang on about the pillars of life and our physical, mental and social health, and that we should always be working towards these and have different goals in these areas, which I have done. But sometimes we just can't do everything, and you've got to accept that at times your physical health may take priority. If you're working towards a goal, you might be working towards a race, a marathon. If you're working towards a marathon, then that's going to take up the majority of your time. Or then on the other hand, you might be trying to enjoy a bit more of a social aspect, going out with friends, going on travel trips, going to see new places, and that is okay as well. Just accept that, life can be busy sometimes. Life will life. And just focus your efforts on different sort of activities. So there's my 5 piece about it, and that's why we're here for season 2 of the Pillars of Life podcast, and I'm hoping it's going to be bigger and better than last time. So if you are returning after listening back in March or back end of last year, then thank you very much. I much appreciate that. It's amazing when I log on to my podcasting app and seeing people all around the world listening to me chatting a bit of waffle about the Pillars of Life. But no, it really is amazing, and I appreciate all of you. We've reached over 700 downloads now, which when I started this podcast, if someone had said that, then I'd have been very surprised. So no, thank you very much, and I'm hoping to get some guests on for this season, because looking to improve the quality and the production, and then the consistency. And that's why it links on funny to the episode we are going to discuss today, which is consistency, and why I believe consistency doesn't work for the success you want. Now, this idea came about from a newsletter article I wrote about why consistency doesn't work. And if you want to get that newsletter, it is a weekly newsletter, and it's titled The Pillars of Life Newsletter. Then you can check out the link in the show notes, and that will take you to a subscription page where you just have to drop in your email, and then every Friday I will send you the weekly Pillars of Life newsletter, and this will just go over a topic of the week. This week it was consistency, and then I will also recommend 3 things to improve your physical, mental and social health. So if that sounds of interest, then I'll be really, really, really happy if you just check out the show notes and go and subscribe to the newsletter. But yes, today, consistency, and why consistency doesn't work. Now, obviously, I don't want to just be really down on consistency. You need consistency to start with. Consistency is the repeated act of doing something over and over again. So To build good, healthy habits, to form a habit within you, yes, you need consistency. And I'm not telling you to not try and get consistent in a new habit you're building. So, for example, if you are trying to become a runner, and you want to run towards, a goal that might be a 10k, a half marathon, a marathon, might even be a 5k, then you're going to have to do some training. You're going to have to form some habits that turn you into a runner. And the best way to do that is to keep running over and over again, which of course is consistency. And that's why it works, because you're building that habit, you're forming that new identity, because you are now doing those actions over and over again, which then forms a habit, which in turn is consistency. And this can work for, a number of things. You might be getting consistent with your diet, might be getting consistent with your training, might be getting consistent, reading a book. Consistency and building habits go quite hand in hand. And obviously that's why I like the idea of consistency. But I've got a few issues with it, and like I say, it sparked from I was listening to a podcast with Oliver Berkman on there, the author of 4,000 Weeks. I'd recommend going to check that one out. But he was talking about consistency as well, and it really sparked something in me, because I feel like I'm quite an all or nothing person. I'm either all in on something or I'm not. Well, not as such, but I am very black and white, and that can be positive and negative. Like if I'm going on a night out, I'm going on a night out, and I'm going to enjoy myself to the detriment of some of the pillars of life. But that also goes in the positive as well. If I'm training towards a physical goal, such as a race, such as a time, such as a target, then all of my activity is going to go towards that. And then when I can't direct my efforts towards that activity or towards that goal, that's when I run into some issues, because in my head I am black and white, and that's why consistency sometimes become a bit of a hurdle. So I want to discuss 3 things really that I've got issue with on consistency. And the first one is losing the love for things. Losing the love for things. And that is when we start an activity such as running, such as building a business, such as starting a podcast, such as starting a YouTube channel, and we think, this activity is really good for me because it improves a good asset of my life, such as, my physical health, social health, mental health. I know I should do this thing. And so you start building that habit, you start being consistent with it, and you do it day after day after day. But what I've noticed is that when we do things like this day after day because you believe it's good for you and you want to form that habit, it can sometimes become a chore. Now, I've got a good example in my life, which I've got 2 good examples actually. Number 1 was journaling. So, as you know, I'm a big journaler, or was a big journaler. I used to love writing in the 6-minute diary. If you haven't checked that out, I'd really recommend if you want to start a gratitude journaling habit. But I then became so fixated on doing this journaling morning and night. So I would get up in the morning, get my pen out, and write 3 things I was grateful for. And in the morning, this would be really good, this would be really positive, especially at the start. So I would, have a long, hard think about 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things I want to do within the day, and then a positive affirmation. And it was really good at the start. But unfortunately, as time went on, I just became a bit robotic in it. I wasn't thinking enough. The habit had become too habitual, it had become too automated, and I wasn't giving it the time or attention it really deserved. So the quality went down. I wasn't giving it the attention it deserved, like I said. But when we become on autopilot, then we can lose the reason we're doing it. So for me, when I was gratitude journaling, I was supposed to be writing down this journal because it was supposed to uplift me. It was supposed to give me that sense of, life is really good, and this is the reason for it. I've got 3 things here that I can come back to throughout the day. If anything negative happens, I can think about these 3 things. But because I was becoming so robotic and so just on autopilot about the habit, it wasn't working. It wasn't having the desired effect. And I believe that that's a bit of an issue. Well, it's not a bit of an issue, it's definitely an issue with consistency. When it becomes just too automated that we're not even really thinking about it. And then on the other hand as well, I've obviously got a Twitter page, or now it's called X, and you can follow me at Harry Evans PT, little plug. But I used to love that at the start. I used to love getting up and writing and engaging with people. But in the vanity, I would say, in the hope to acquire more followers, to acquire more engagement, impressions, I was told that I had to show up every single day, no matter what. Whether that meant I was on holiday, or if I just didn't feel like it, then I was supposed to show up, write a quality post and engage with 20 and 30 people on X. At times it really makes me cringe, because I was writing rubbish, absolute rubbish. like it was not quality. It was just get something out there. People had told me I needed to do this, so that's what I was going to do. And then it just become fixated in me. I was like, right, I get up in the morning, do my journaling, and then I do this. Then I go and write something on X without thinking about it. I wasn't really thinking about what I was putting out there. It just become a chore. It become a chore to do. I'd lost the love for it. So that is something I want you to consider with your habits. I want you to be consistent with things 100%. And sometimes you won't feel like doing it, and you'll do it anyway, because you know it's good for you, and that's really good. Sometimes we should do things that we don't want to do, but just have a think internally about your habits, some of the ones that you've picked up and that you do day in, day out. Just have a think, are they still serving you? Are you still doing them for the love and for the benefit they give you? Or are you doing it just to be consistent? Have they become a chore? Are you doing them on autopilot? Because if you are, I would suggest you have a bit of time to reflect and think, is this habit here to stay? Is it serving me? Because the whole reason we pick up a habit is for it to serve you. And if it's not, if it's become a chore, then I believe you should then reflect on that and see if it's there to stay, or if you should leave it. If you are going to have it stay, then we'll discuss on what you should maybe do instead of just doing it on autopilot every single day. But yeah, that's my first issue with consistency, when it becomes a chore and when it becomes a bit too automated. So, and just on that point as well, I've just thought then, when it becomes a chore, or when you do lose the love of it because it's become too automated, that's when burnout happens. A lot of people talk about burnout as well. Talk about burnout like they do consistency. It's a buzzword every single, social media post. Motivation, discipline, consistency, burnout. Everyone loves talking about a balance. It's quite hypothetical, hypocritical, because I do talk about it as well. But sometimes you've got to. But yeah, when you're too automated, when you just think of things as, right, I've got to do this because I've got to stay consistent, that's when things turn into burnout, because you'll get up in the morning and believe that you've got to do 101 things because you are that person, you want to stay consistent. So you get up and you're like, right, I've got to exercise, I've got to meditate, I've got to journal, I've got to write on X, I've got to record a podcast, I've got to spend time with my loved ones, I've got to spend time with my girlfriend or boyfriend, I've got to do all these different things, and then before you know it, your to-do list is like longer than your arm, and that is when burnout happens. So, and again, this isn't my idea, this is one from Oliver Berkman, and again, I really think you should check him out. But instead of a to-do list, he spoke about a done list, and it really resonated with me and that, I think it links well with the whole consistency part. So the done list, and what he explains is, instead of waking up with this anxiety that you've got to do a million and one things because you want to be consistent, you get up with a blank slate and you just write down what you do. You know, that might be you went to the gym for half an hour, you rang a family member, you clean the apartment. No matter how big, no matter how small, just make a done list instead of ticking off a to-do list. And I really like that, because over time you will be consistent, but it will be more your internal drive. It won't just be this autopilot that's going on and on and on and on. No, it will be you internally thinking, yes, I want to do this for the benefit, and that's anti-burnout to me. So it's another one to just consider. But number 2 is the quality. So quality over quantity. So going back to me and my example on the journaling and the X posts, I really can't get behind X instead of Twitter. Elon. Yeah, not sure. But here it is. It's here to stay, isn't it? So X. I was writing things in my journal, and I was posting on X, and I was doing the consistent thing, but it was not quality. It was quantity over quality. And I think at the start, when you form a habit, you know, if you're going to go to the gym, or if you're starting a fitness routine such as running, a podcast, then that first initial stage where we are a novice, where we are a beginner, forming the habit and being consistent and showing up daily is perfect, and that's all we need to do. But then when we move into that more intermediate phase, where we potentially have a few more goals, we need to start thinking about quality. The quality of our actions, the quality of our inputs and outputs. I don't think you can do that every day if you just focus on consistency. And again, another good example for me, if I'm there and I want to do this podcast, and I'm like, right, I do a podcast every week, so that's it, black and white, I do a podcast every week. I go set up my camera, my microphone on a Friday, and I go to record. I've not done any prep, not much has happened this week. I don't really know what I want to discuss, and I just ramble on because I know that I need to get a podcast out, I need to get content out. This is not the reason why you should do something, and in this example, it's not the reason why you should have a podcast. You should be able to give quality. You should be able to give quality to the listeners, to you. I should be able to provide value. You should be able to provide value in all the activities that you do. But if you're just focusing on consistency and showing up without improving the quality over time, do you think you're adding value? I don't think so, and it's something I've definitely personally fell accustomed to. You know, it's something that I've done in terms of, you know, X, writing on Twitter, in terms of the podcast, my newsletter. I've just been in this whole, right, show up weekly, daily, whatever the routine is that you've said to yourself. I want to show up and I'm just going to put something out there without planning, without creating value. So just have a think on that. Think of the activities that you do and think, right, am I adding value? Am I getting better over time? And if you're not, then maybe you just need to take, again, a bit of time to reflect, take a step back and say, right, instead of doing a post every single day, I'm going to do 3 posts every week, but they're going to be bloody good posts. And trust me, your audience or whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to get more out of that quality. And I feel like people are scared of this because if they do something 7 days a week and then they suddenly reduce it to 4, they think they're just not going to do it again. But that's not how habits work. You know, you've worked long enough, you've been in that novice stage, you've been in that beginner stage where you've built the habit, you've formed the habit. Now it's time to get better. Now it's time to up the quality. Something that Chris Williamson says at Modern Wisdom is, you know, turn pro. I'm probably not talking about that as such. You know, I'm not expecting you to become a pro podcaster or a pro runner or a bodybuilder. You're not going to have that quality, because we're all about balance here. Again, another buzzword. But just showing more quality time after time, and just to know that, okay, maybe you won't do it daily, but that's not a bad thing. The quality is better than the quantity. So just think about that when it comes to consistency. And then number 3, and again it links with my other 2 points, and this is linked off Oliver Burkeman again. So if you've not listened to any of his stuff or looked at any of his stuff, then I would really recommend it. 4,000 Weeks is a great book, and he's just got a new one out at the minute that I've not actually delved into, but I've heard it's very good. So yeah, Oliver Burkeman, and he talks about daily-ish. And that again is talking about sometimes your habits won't be daily. You won't do them all the time. And that again is okay. We know when we have a habit, for example, you want to become a runner. So you have the identity of a runner. That doesn't mean you have to run every day. For me, if you run 3 times a week, you're still a runner. You don't have to, be a runner and run 6 times a week to identify as one. No. It's about quality over quantity, and we know if we're sticking to something. If you've got a meditation routine and you've decided you want to be somebody who meditates to become more mindful, to become more present, and you do that activity 5 days a week or 4 days a week, I would still say that's pretty consistent. If you do that week on week, just because you don't do something week on week or day on day doesn't mean you're not consistent. The whole 80-20 is an amazing thing. If you do something 80% of the time, I would say even 70% of the time, you're consistent. You're consistent enough, because life is going to life. Have a bit of flexibility. Don't be too rigid. And this is a message to my younger self, because I used to be a complete and utter robot, way too rigid. And I did talk about in a previous podcast episode, if you want to check it out, about being a slave to your calendar. And people laughed about that, but I was, and I'm trying to get better at that. And I think the episode was about planning your week, and I used to plan my week so rigidly and so with so much structure that if that got thrown out, if life happened, because sometimes life will life, I would feel huge anxiety. I'd be anxious about that. And to be honest with you, I need to do some inner work about why I need so much control over things. I'm still not 100% sure, but if that's you, then let me tell you that doing things the majority of the time is still consistent. You don't have to do things day after day to be consistent, and you certainly don't have to do them daily to get the benefits for them. Some things you need to do more regularly. For example, if you're looking to lose weight, then you need to be in a calorie deficit over a week, and so that's going to impact your daily actions on food choices. But other things such as content creation, journaling, meditating, even your training, they're not going to be daily activities, because as an adult, as someone who is balancing a lot of different activities, sometimes you're going to be busy, and that is okay. Remember, the whole point of this self-improvement journey, if you're looking to improve any sort of aspect of your life, is to enjoy it. It's to enjoy the ride. Because if you don't enjoy the ride, then what's the point of doing it? So yeah, daily-ish. Remember that, and I feel like you will certainly see the benefits of your consistency more than if you're so anxious and worried about doing it day in, day out. So yeah, so there are the 3 main things on why I believe consistency doesn't work as much as people say it does. So just to go over them, it is number 1, losing the love for things and it becoming a chore, which leads to burnout. Number 2, your quality of your outputs over the quantity. And number 3, being daily-ish rather than just being daily. So in terms of if you are looking to improve your consistency, or if you feel like you are too consistent, too rigid, too structured, then write down your habits. And like, this is a bit of an actionable, tangible tip I want to give you. So if you do try it out, then please do let me know. Just email me or send me a comment on Instagram or Twitter. But what I want you to do is, I want you to write out all the habits that you feel you do over a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, right? And I then want you to try, if you do that habit daily and it feels like a chore, start doing it 6 days a week. Just stop doing it one day and see what happens. Because I know when I was caught up in the complete and utter rigid structure, I felt as if I didn't do an activity one day, I thought my whole life was going to end. And trust me, it doesn't. It doesn't. Life is still okay. So try to do it 6 days a week. Try and do it 5 days a week. Try and do it 4 days a week. I'd say four's the sweet spot, 5 to 4, because obviously if you're going to do a habit, you still need to do it enough times to see the benefit. So just try and make a list of all your activities and then write down how many times you're going to do them, and then track your progress over a weekly, monthly and quarterly basis, and let me know how you get on. I would really like to know how you get on. So that is my issue with consistency and why sometimes it doesn't work. If you have found any benefit or value out of this podcast, I would love you to subscribe so you can get the weekly episodes into your feed, into your ears, and listen to me rambling about how to improve your physical, mental and social health. It would mean the world to me. If you could also open up Spotify, open up Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube, wherever you're listening to, and please do leave a review, because it helps me immensely. And like I say, while I'm trying to get back into this routine of podcasting, any sort of support, any positive reinforcement really does help me along the way. So if you could leave a review, leave a star rating, leave a comment, then I would absolutely love that, and you will be a legend in my eyes for forevermore. And then finally, obviously you can go back and check my earlier episodes on season 1 of the Pillars of Life podcast that I've now candidly called it. But yeah, if there's certainly some value in there. After 700 downloads of people, I know that there's quality in there, so I'd love you to go and check them out as well. And in the show notes down below, there'll be a link to all my socials, such as my Instagram page, my Twitter, which I post daily on, as discussed in this episode, where you'll find plenty of value in terms of how to improve your physical, mental and social health. And finally, you can also get a free training and nutrition guide, which is in the show notes down below as well. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Pillars of Life, and I will see you next week.